Okay, so Sarah, it's lovely to see you. Everybody, Sarah is a long-term member of the Trust, and we've invited her today because of her work that she's been doing with Tottenham Food Bank. So Sarah, thanks so much for giving up some time to come and see us today. Could you just tell everybody, first of all, what inspired you to get involved with the food bank, and how did you actually do that? How did you get involved?
Well, last is about October when we were in lockdown. Didn't have, well, suddenly, obviously, there was no football. I wasn't going to Spurs every week, every other week. My kids' sport had all stopped, and I was feeling like I had lots of free time, and I thought I'd like to get involved in something. It sounds a bit of a cliche, but really it was Marcus Rashford and all his food bank business that made me think, oh, perhaps I could do that. I can pack a bag, I could get involved with something like that. So I did. I live in Hertfordshire and I inquired at some food banks around here, but I think they were sort of a bit overwhelmed with volunteers at that stage. Mm-hmm. And then by an absolute coincidence, in the very week that I was trying to do this, Peter from the Trust he put a tweet out saying that the Tottenham Food Bank was looking for volunteers. And so I thought, oh, well, I'm up there most of the time anyway. It's not that far easy for me to get there. I'll just see if they need some help and what help they actually need. So I tweeted them, and then within a few days, I was in a WhatsApp group and they were asking for volunteers. And basically, I was going on a Monday to just pack some bags for the deliveries that they were doing. And so within like a week of saying I wanted to help, I was up at the Tottenham Town Hall packing a bag with food. So yeah, very quick and just straight into it, really.
Fantastic. And I think that's a sign of how important it is to the food banks that volunteers step forward, because I know there's always a shortage.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I have food banks obviously near me, and I'm used to working with food banks in my former life as a head teacher. But I've been up at Tottenham Food Bank delivering leaflets and things because I think it's a two-way thing, isn't it? The difficulty of getting donations, but also getting people to know about it and to accept it. Is that what you've found?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I first started at the food bank, we were doing more deliveries, and so there were quite a lot of people that came forward. I mean, the way it works at the Tottenham Food Bank is it's done through a voucher system. The food bank itself is under the Trussell Trust sort of heading umbrella, if you like, then they run lots of food banks up and down the country. And yeah, they do it on a voucher system. So people can get vouchers from lots of different places like Citizen Advice, social services, doctors, loads of places. And then they would get in touch with the food bank and we were doing deliveries out to them. So the sort of stigma that there can be involved in food banks wasn't really there so much when they were deliveries. But since we've gone back to face, I think there is still a bit of a stigma that people feel concerned that people will judge them or whatever. But just from my very limited experience of the food bank, really, there's so many different sorts of people that end up at the door of the food bank, and it might be just for one. The parcels that we do are like meant to be 3-day emergency rations, and it might be that they just come once and they just found themselves in a situation that was a real emergency. I mean, they're all emergencies, but not a longer emergency. But then you have people that need to make use of the food bank if they're on 0 hours contracts, things like that, and their income is really fluctuates. So you can never know what is behind somebody being there, and it could be loads of different things.
Yes, that's a really good point. And so many people are really only one pay packet away from poverty, aren't they?
Absolutely.
So obviously the club and the trust work really closely with the food bank, and certainly when I went, it was fantastic because Ozzy was there working with them as well. And we do a service on match days. What does that involve?
So this season, so I've been at the food bank for a few months, and then somebody suggested that maybe we get involved with doing some collection of food on match days. So we've tried to run it. We're trying to do it every home game or every weekend home game. That's proved quite difficult because of the number of volunteers that we have, which isn't very much for a match day, unfortunately. Basically, we've got somebody who's very kindly happy to bring the food bank van that people may have seen from the town hall to the community centre. And then we're with the van for a couple of hours. And then we usually stop doing collections an hour before the game, because the people that do volunteer, nearly all of them are season ticket holders or do go to the games regularly. Yeah. So then we stop an hour before, and then people can go off home, and then or go to the game, and usually I then bring the van back to where it needs to go after the games. Oh, wow. So yeah, it is, for some of us, it's quite a reasonable commitment, but I think the more people we had, obviously, the less commitment it would be. And we're really mainly looking for people just to be with the van for an hour or 2 hours before the game, just take in donations. And the fans themselves have been really generous. Obviously, some days we get more stuff than other days, but we get quite a lot of regulars that come now with donations. And they watch the social media for the trust and for the food bank and for the Spurs as well, put out in their information the sorts of things that we're looking for in donations. But really, anything that anyone can bring has been really amazing. So it's definitely worth us doing. At the moment, we're doing it once a month, so we're trying to do one home game a month. But in the future, if we can get more volunteers, we might be able to do more often. So
fantastic. So with the items that are donated, they're all taken back to Tottenham Food Bank and then distributed.
Yeah.
Is that
they're
right?
Used. There's like a warehouse there, and then we just use the donations as part of the usual parcels that we make up. As I said, we've got a standard list of food that is given out for people. So depending on whether it's a single person, a couple, or a family, depends how much they get. And the food parcel itself is meant to last 3 days. And it's mainly, it's all things like tins, pasta, sauces, that sort of thing that could be. But we do tailor. When people come into the food bank now, we do tailor for if they've got any allergies or any food issues. But everything that gets donated goes into the warehouse and then is used.
And am I right in thinking that it would also that you'd also welcome sanitary products and shower gels, etc.?
Yeah. So part of the emergency parcel is, as well as food, there is toiletries and sanitary products and just the usual sorts of washing up liquid and washing powder for clothes and things like that. So it's just a sort of toothbrushes, toothpaste to get people through what might be an emergency situation for them.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. So if hopefully we've inspired some people to get involved. I'm really pleased that I'm going to be working more closely with the food bank going forward, along with Rob, also from the board, because of course we're saying goodbye to Pete from the board, although he will always, I know, be involved with the food bank.